Yeah, the live is now loading, so I'll send it to you shortly. I just sent you the link.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so I think we've waited enough, so we can get started. So thank you guys for joining this another best event. We have the opportunity to have Mr. Topp to. Okay, so waited enough, so we can get started. So thank you guys for joining this another best event. We have the opportunity to have Mr. Topp to. Okay, so waited enough, so we can get started. So yeah, okay, so yeah, you can talk. Thank you.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you all here today. I think this is a great group because when I was a high school student, every weekend I would, go out and, go shopping maybe. So it wasn't a very productive time. So I think this is great, a great event. Welcome everyone. We have about an hour to talk about the future. What's different now, right, in the internet century versus our parents' generation, and what as we about to enter the university or the workforce, what should we prepare, right, as a group here today. Let me give you a quick introduction about myself. I've been in. My name is Topp, Jirayut. I'm Thai. I've been in the fintech space in Thailand for 7 years now. Founded 2 cryptocurrency companies. Founded the first one in early 2014 when people didn't really understand what Bitcoin was. So I've been through a lot. We went to the SEC, the Bank of Thailand, anti-money laundering officers, tax authority, trying to educate everyone. It was a very tough time, but fortunately, it was a good venture. Then now I founded a second company, Bitkub. Now we are the largest cryptocurrency exchange in the country, and also the largest blockchain company in the country. We are one of the only 3 companies that got a special license from the Ministry of Finance to allow Thai people to come and buy and sell digital asset, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple, legally. And we control about 95% of the market right now. So when you talk about Bitcoin, people usually use Bitkub to trade or send and receive cryptocurrency payments. So we are one of the very successful fintech companies in Thailand, and one of the most profitable startups. On my background, I was reading economics at school. I'm also on the board of the Thai Fintech Association. We have about 170 fintech companies here in Thailand. So let's talk about what's different now. Right? In this era, we call it the internet century era, which is very different from the previous era, industrial revolution era. But first, I need to give credit to Kun Gov. He is our seed round investor, one of the earliest investor in our company. And I borrow his slides today to explain to you about the exponential transformation about our current world. I need to introduce the word exponential. Okay. You guys know the exponential graph, right? When it is going to, as time moves, it is getting steeper and steeper, right, the curve. And it is very different if you compare exponential graph to a linear graph as time goes by. Right? But at the start, they look very similar, right? Because the exponential curve is not steep. It's not steep yet. Right? You need to wait for us, until it reaches a half of the curve. Then it went upward, right? It goes upward. Or the best way to explain this is that imagine if there is a guy, a person, who can take 30 linear steps. He or she can maybe go for 30 meters, right? 30 linear steps. But if there is another person that could take 30 exponential steps, this person could go around the world for 26 times. The difference is huge. Even though we are on the same time span, one person can go, forward for 30 meters. The other person has gone around the world for 26 times already. This is the impact of exponential development, right? Versus the impact of a linear development. What I'm trying to tell everyone here is that our world that we are living in is not moving in the linear manner. We're moving at an exponential rate. Right? This is how the world works. We're moving at an exponential manner. Do you guys notice why, in the last 15 years, 20 years, 30 years ago, people always say the word innovation, right? We heard this word all the time. But in recent years, in the last 5 years, in the last 10 years, people stopped saying innovation. People started to say disruption. Have you wondered why? Because these two things are very different, right? Innovation is when you're improving existing infrastructure incrementally, when you're doing an incremental improvement on existing infrastructure, right? Existing things, doing the same things a bit better, right? Innovation. But disruption is when you are creating new things that make the old things completely obsolete, completely replace the old things. And the reason why people have been saying innovation in the last 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, but in only recent years, people started to say disruption. It can be explained by this graph here. When you plot exponential curve and linear curve together, you understand the difference, right? If you see the earlier, at the start of the graph, these two curves are very similar, right? They're moving in tandem in a linear manner. But once we reach the latter half, the exponential curve is, getting steeper and steeper, right? Picking its head upwards. This is how the world works. The world is the red line. What we have been thinking or working, we're still thinking in the gray line, linear thinking. We are working in a linear manner, which doesn't, affect us much in the last era, industrial revolution era, because the two curves were similar. But once we hit the internet century, now we're entering the latter half of the graph. This is where we are now in the world. The world is picking its head upwards, whereas we're still moving in a linear manner. We're still doing incremental improvements, which is not enough anymore in our current world, right? It was enough in our parents' generation, but clearly not enough in our current generation. Or another way to explain this is that we have already taken 25 steps of all the developments. But those 25 steps that we took only accounted for 3.1% of the development. This is the characteristic of the exponential curve, right? And what I'm trying to tell everyone here is that we are entering the last 5 steps in the next few years, right? 5 years, 10 years. This is where we are going to take the last 5 steps. And these 5 steps will account for 96% of all the world's development. Right? This is the characteristic of the exponential curve, right? The latter half accounts way more than the first 25 steps. And the reason why people have been saying innovation is because the exponential curve was linear at the start. We were doing incremental improvement on existing infrastructure, moving in the linear manner, right? That's innovation. But once we hit the internet century, that's when the head is picking its, heads upward, the graph. That's disruption, right? We are creating new things that makes the old thing completely obsolete. A good example is this company called Alipay. Have you guys heard of Alipay in China, Ant Financial? This company was founded in 2014. What's the year today? 2020. Within 6 years, Alipay and WeChat were able to make China, the whole of China, completely cashless, right? Going completely cashless within just six years. Almost 2 billion people, right? 1.5 billion people completely cashless. And they already became the largest social banking app in China, the largest bank in China within 6 years. There's another bank, the biggest bank in the world, called Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs has been around for 151 years. 151 years. Guess between Alipay and Goldman Sachs, which company is more valuable now? Alipay already exceeded the valuation of Goldman Sachs, and it has been around for 6 years. That's the impact of the last 5 steps, right? 96% versus 3.1%. Goldman Sachs has been taking 25 steps, 151 years, moving things in the linear manner. But Alipay, WeChat, they're scaling company, right? Scalable company. They're, moving their company in an exponential manner. So within just 6 years, it accounts more than 151 years of linear development. This is a great example, right? Or have you guys heard of a car company called Tesla? Tesla in the US. Do you know that Tesla is now the most valuable car company in American history? In American history, right? If you were to put Ford Henry car company together with General Motors, or Ford Henry company together with Ferrari company, those two companies are still less valuable than Tesla right now. Right? How many years has Tesla been around? Has Tesla been around for 30 years, 40 years, 20 years? Only recent years, right? That's how we create disruptive technology. They're moving in an exponential manner versus linear development. 100+ years for Ford Henry car company, right? The data is clear, right? What I've been telling you here is real. Every data is pointing out towards exponential development. If you see on this picture here, the wind power cost has gone down by 15 times in the last 40 years. 15 times, not 15%, right? If we are talking about percentage, we're moving in the linear manner, right? But we're talking in times, multiples, right? 15 multiples, 15 times in the last 40 years. This is exponential development. Cost of solar power in the last 40 years, it's gone down by 250 times, not 250%, 250 times. in the last 40 years. Look, if you look in 1977, the cost was $77. Now it's gone up to 30 cents in 40 years. Every data is pointing out to this exponential development about our world that we're living in. Or this is the battery price projection. Usually, every year there's a group of optimist battery price expert. They meet every year. And every year that they meet, they would predict when the battery price would be low enough for it to be practical. And every time that they meet, their prediction gets faster and faster than the year before. Even though these guys are already the optimists, it is pointing towards the exponential development, right? But Tesla managed to beat that expectation, right? Even those guys are already the optimist group of expert. It is clear that we're moving at a much faster rate than in the previous generation. Exponential development. Cost of light, you see the graph is very similar. Exponential development. Or I don't know if you believe me, but this phone here on everyone's pocket has more computing power than when we used to send a man to the moon. Right? Can you believe that? This small phone. Because computer chip is getting smaller and smaller every year, but more and more powerful. Right? But not just more and more powerful, but the cost has gone down a lot, exponentially as well. If you look in 2009, right, computer chip costs $20,000. In the next 5 years, 2014, the cost has gone down to $79 from $20,000. That's 250 times in 5 years. 250 times, not percentage. Everything is pointing towards this exponential development. And that's why very soon, right, when we take the last 5 steps, that's where all the goods, innovation, technology is going to come out way more than the last 25 steps, which we thought was fast already, right? But in the next 5 years, the rate is not going to be the same as the last 5 years or slower than the last 5 years or 10 years, right? In the next 5 years, it could be, faster than the last 50 years combined, because technology develops on top of technology as a stepping stone, right? And everything is moving in an exponential manner. So everything is going up quickly. Not just technology that is moving fast. Companies, big companies, Fortune 500 companies are also dying because they're still moving in a linear manner, right? This data shows the lifespan, the average lifespan of S&P 500 companies in the stock exchange in America, right? The average lifespan in the previous generation was 75 years for S&P 500 companies. But do you know how the average lifespan now in this generation of S&P 500 companies? It's gone down from 75 years average to 7 years average lifespan. That's how fast we move here. Meaning that if you are the CEO of one of the largest company in the stock exchange in America, and you take 5 years to do R&D, research and development, pilot test, and then that's fine, because in the previous generation you still have 70 years of implementation. It's not too late. But imagine if you're the CEO of the largest company now, and it takes you 5 years to do R&D, pilot test. You really only have 2 years left of implementation. We have to move much faster, right? So even the big companies are getting affected by the exponential developments of the world. But that's the old big incumbent companies that we talked about, right? But this slide talks about, what about the new companies? New companies also succeed at a much faster rate. Right, the trend is reversed for for new companies. Amazon, Jeff Bezos, it took him 20 years to get Amazon from the ground up to a billion-dollar company, right? Unicorn. We call it a unicorn, right? A company with valuation more than $1 billion. It took Jeff Bezos, founder of Amazon, 20 years. Mark Zuckerberg, a student in the Harvard dorm room, it took him 10 years to get Facebook from his room to a billion-dollar status. 10 years, half of the lifespan of what took Jeff Bezos, right? Half of the time. But 10 years is still too long because Uber took them 6 years to become a unicorn. 6 years is still long because Airbnb took 3 years to become a unicorn. 3 years is still long because Luckin Coffee from China took them 18 months to go from nothing to a unicorn status. A year and a half. A billion-dollar company. 18 months. So if you're still thinking that you're living in a world where it takes you 18 months to create a business plan, know that another person already created a unicorn in 18 months, right? Has anyone wondered why? Why new companies are succeeding at a much faster rate? Why 20 years for Amazon? Why 10 years for Facebook? Why 6 years for Uber? Why 3 years for Airbnb? Why 18 months for Luckin Coffee? Why is the rate? It's becoming faster and faster. The answer is that the new generation can tap on existing infrastructure that the previous generation built for us. We don't need to reinvest in what's already out there, right? If you look at Jeff Bezos when he first started Amazon in his garage, right? Back then in 1994, do you think a lot of households in America got the internet access already? I'm sure not 300 million Americans, right? Because AT&T, the internet company, hasn't got the capability to provide everyone internet access yet. I don't think you guys was around when we used to use home telephone to connect to the internet. You don't even know what a modem is, right? Now we are on Wi-Fi, right? But back then, not every household was connected to the internet. What does that mean? It means that Amazon's market share is very limited because not everyone can go online to be their customer, right? And that slows Amazon down because of very limited market size. Not everyone got access to the internet back then. And what's worse, because when Jeff Bezos needed to scale his company, he had to chop up parts of his profit every year to reinvest back in the business, in the private server, because there's no cloud computing back in his days. He had to reinvest in CapEx, private server every year. That eats up his profit every year. It slows the company down because there's no cloud computing. So it takes him 20 years to build a unicorn because the environment wasn't that ready. But if you look at Mark Zuckerberg's days, when he was a student at the Harvard dorm room, mostly everyone in America has access to the internet already, right? So the market size of Facebook was much larger when they started compared to Amazon. And that's why, because Mark Zuckerberg is able to succeed faster because AT&T invested in the internet connection for Facebook without having to invest this themselves, right? Or Mark Zuckerberg doesn't need to, chop up his profit every year to reinvest in private server because Jeff Bezos invested in cloud computing for Facebook. Facebook can use AWS service without having to reinvest in private server. It saves a lot of cost. And look at computer chip. The initial investment cost for Amazon $20,000, right? Now it's gone down to $79. That's a huge difference, right? New companies can save a lot of costs versus previous generation where everything was so expensive. Right? What's worse? Steve Jobs? He puts a supercomputer on everyone's pocket, meaning that Facebook no longer needs to open up new offices around the world in order to get access to customers. For example, in Thailand, they don't even need to be here really because people just move their thumb to be their customers on mobile phone. Everyone has a Facebook account here in Thailand. They don't even need to open up an office here, right? Everyone has direct access to customers via mobile phone. And Facebook didn't need to invest in mobile phone because Steve Jobs did that for him. That's why, new companies succeed at a much faster rate. Cheaper cost, everyone else invested for them in the, for the infrastructure, the environment. You can tap on them for almost free. Look at Uber. They didn't need to invest in private server. They can use AWS. Everyone is connected to the internet already in the Uber days, right? Steve Jobs puts everyone's in on a smartphone where Uber can get direct access without having to open up new offices around the world. What's more, right? Facebook puts everyone in one place. With one advertising, everyone can see Uber. That's why the success rate is much faster. If you were to go back and ask your grandparents one question, you should ask them, do you believe that you can build a $1 billion company in your lifetime, in your generation? Your grandparents would say no. It would need to be a multiple generation company passed down, few generations down, because that's not possible in their days. But in our generation, it takes someone in China 18 months to go from nothing to $1 billion status. This is the most exciting era in the history of the world. We can never build the most valuable company in a short period of time. Everything is ready. We don't need to invest in the environment or invest in the infrastructure. Everything is out there for us to tap and use for free and scale our company quickly. The data is clear. Look, this is where the unicorn clubs, right? These are the unicorn clubs. Are there more unicorns now or less unicorns? Now, there are more unicorns, especially after the arrival of smartphone. You can see the graph, right? The picture above. After the arrival of smartphone, it creates so many multi-billion-dollar industry because it removes intermediaries. Branches is no longer valid. Right? You cannot get direct access to customers by moving the thumb only. And this is a great example of incumbent big companies that had a fixed mindset. They didn't adjust. They were moving in a linear manner, and they failed. Blockbuster. I don't think you guys were around Blockbuster, but it was my favorite store, physical store, almost on every street in Bangkok. Back in my early days, used to go to with my dad to go. It's a video rental shop. You can only rent 4 or 5 videos, and you need to return them before you can rent more videos. Right. Blockbuster controlled more than 90% in the past. Very big company, but they're not building a scalable company because they need to open up shops in order to get access to more customers. They need to open up more branches, and this eats up into their profit every year. Right? They need to spare their profit for reinvest in branches in order to expand their revenue. In the year 2000, Netflix was founded. Uh, no, Netflix was founded a bit earlier, in 1997. But after 3 years of operation, Netflix CEO booked a domestic flight to go talk to Blockbuster CEO. They met in America, Blockbuster headquarters, and Netflix was saying this to Blockbuster CEO: "You're not building a scalable company. You need to reinvest your profit every year to expand your branches in order to expand your revenue. It's not very scalable. I found a scalable Blockbuster version called Netflix online, where anyone can watch any videos anywhere, anytime online, without having to open up more and more branches to get access to more customers. Right? I want to sell it to you for $50 million." And after Blockbuster CEO heard that, he burst out laughing. Right? He said, "You want to sell your company for $50 million, and you criticize my company for not building a scalable product. Do you know who's the biggest player now in this space? How much am I making this year in terms of revenue? I made $6 billion. You're going to sell your company for $50 million. Right? So Blockbuster CEO despised Netflix CEO. This came from the interview of the Netflix CEO, by the way. He said it was one of the most embarrassing days in his life. So the conversation went downhill after that. They didn't buy Netflix. So Netflix CEO flew back to his hometown, changed the company to a subscription-based company, and they grew crazy year on year. Netflix. Look what happened today. Blockbuster is no longer here. You guys don't even know what Blockbuster is, right? And look at Netflix. Everyone has a Netflix account, right? Every household has a Netflix account. And what's the valuation of Netflix? Like $65 billion, 10 times more than $6 billion back in the year 2000 that they talked with the Blockbuster CEO. So this is an example of what we call a short-term profit maximizing CEO, right? Not a long-term visionary CEO. Blockbuster wasn't a visionary CEO, right, guy. He was a short-term profit maximizing CEO. He didn't even want to pay $50 million to disrupt himself, right? He didn't want to shoot himself in the foot, so someone else shoot him in the head, right? So he didn't, this is another great example. Did you guys see the photo? This person, his name is Steven. This is the guy that invented the first digital camera, right? Steven Sassin. He invented digital camera in 1975. But what's funny is he was an employee of Kodak. I don't know if you guys know Kodak, but in my early days, Kodak was the biggest film camera company. More than 90% market share. Right. Steven, he was so excited in 1975 that he discovered, he invented digital camera. You know what he did? On this photo, this is what it looks like. The first version, digital camera. So he brought this camera to his CEO, his boss. Very excited, said, "I invented, the digital camera, the next version of the camera that we are selling to customers." You know what the Kodak CEO said to Steven? He said, "Steven, please go and hide this digital camera and don't let anyone see it. Don't tell anyone." Do you know why? Because that CEO, he was praised by his shareholders as a very competent CEO, made a lot of profit selling film cameras. And he didn't want to disrupt his revenue stream. It was his cash cow, right? So he didn't want to shoot himself in the foot. from that day, just for the next in the next 3 years from there, there's a random company from Finland called Nokia. I don't know if you guys know Nokia as well, but within 3 years, fully disrupted Kodak. Now this Kodak is bankrupt, right? So the CEO did not want to shoot himself in the foot. Someone else, Nokia, shot him in the head. Right? You need to disrupt yourself. So this is another type of what we call a short-term profit maximizing CEO. Kodak CEO wasn't a long-term visionary CEO. They were the first one that invented digital camera, but they let someone else launch it and disrupt their product line anyway, right? Their film camera revenue stream anyway, right? So this is the first type of CEO that we see. Then there is a second type of CEO, which I hope we will grow up to be more, in the future. We call it long-term visionary CEO. Very few in this world. One of them is Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon. In his, after the Amazon was launched, their sales of paper book, it was a very successful product, right? Selling paper book online. And once the sales of paper book reached the peak, you know what Jeff did? Jeff Bezos launched Kindle at the peak, of the revenue from selling paper book. And you guys know what Kindle is, right? Paper book killer. You can read multiple books in one device, unlimited books. His shareholders was baffled. They were confused. Like, why are you disrupting your cash cow? The sales of paper book is going so well, right? Reaching the peak now. Why are you destroying this, money-making opportunity? But Jeff Bezos did it anyway. He launched Kindle to kill his paper book product. And this year, the sales of Kindle already exceeded the sales of paper book. And who's the richest guy in the world? Not Bill Gates. The richest guy in the world is Jeff Bezos, right? He decided to shoot himself in the foot before letting someone else shoot him in the head. Because he knew that if he didn't launch Kindle, someone else would do it anyway, right? And disrupt his revenue stream outside Amazon. At least if he launched Kindle, the revenue stream from one stream has been disrupted, but it created a new stream of income, right? Some people asked me, the reason why Kodak went bankrupt was because maybe people take less photos, or are we taking more photos today or less photos than today than the previous generation? We're taking way more photos, right? But if we take more photos today, why is Kodak no longer here? Because the demand has gone up crazy, right? The demand for taking photos. The camera company should grow in tandem with the demand. They are the supplier. Why is Kodak no longer here if we're taking more photos now today? The answer is that the demand has always been there, right? The demand for everything, demand for taking photos has been there, never changed. But what needs to change is the supply equation, the way we serve customers, right? The way we invent new products that beats the old product, beat the expectation, push the expectation bar up for customers. Whatever industry you're in, you need to update your supply equation, constantly update your supply equation. And as we move towards the internet century, you need to update your supply equation in an exponential manner, not in a linear manner. The demand has always been there, never changed. But what needs to be updated is the supply side, right? Not just technology that is coming out fast, not just companies' lifespan is getting shorter, new companies are succeeding at a much faster rate, but also customers' behavior is changing. We are embracing new technology at a much faster rate as well. This data shows, that for one particular technology to reach 50 million people, what's the average time that it takes one technology to reach 50 million people? I don't think you guys were around to see home telephone, right? Before we didn't have mobile phone. We used to call each other from home telephone, the dial-up in the setting. That technology, home telephone, took them 50 years to reach 50 million people, 50. Television, it takes television 22 years to reach 50 million customers, right, people. It took the internet 14 years to reach 50 million users. It took smartphone 7 years to reach 50 million users. Can you see the trend is being halved, right? From 50 to 22 to 14 to 7 years. And then you have that again. It took Facebook 4 years to reach 50 million users. WeChat took them 1 year to get 50 million customers, 1 year. The latest data, Pokemon Go, took them 1 month to reach 50 million users, 1 month. We are embracing new technology at a much faster rate as well. See the graph on this, on the photo, the graph is getting steeper and steeper, right? Embracing new technology at a much faster rate. I think in your generation, when you are graduated, we would be bluffing in hours. How many hours it take your company to reach 50 million users, right? Much faster rate, not months, hours. We would be competing on an hourly basis now when you graduate, right? And what I've been saying, with all these data pointing out towards one thing, exponential development. So if the world, the technology, everything is moving in an exponential manner, why we cannot have companies that are moving in a linear manner anymore? Because it's no longer valid in this era where the graph is picking its head upwards. It was okay in the previous generation, the innovation era, where we are improving existing things, incremental improvement on existing infrastructure, right? Because the exponential curve, the earlier graph is not steep yet. It's quite linear. Impact is very similar. But now we need to create a company with exponential dimension to it. That's why there's a new type of company popping up, right, called startup. And by the way, this is one of the most misunderstood word in Thailand. If you walk on the street and you ask anyone on the street what a startup is, most likely he or she will tell you that it's a small company. It's a company with very limited resources. It's a company with only a few employees. It's a newly established company. That's a common answer. And it's wrong. It's not true. This is the real meaning of a startup. A startup is a company that has two things. First, repeatable business model, right? Second, scalable business model. So any company with these two functions are classified as startups. This is the real meaning. It's not a company with small, limited resources, few employees, newly established. No, it's not. Startup is a company with repeatable and scalable business model. A good example is, do you guys know Central Group or Walmart? Right? It took them 4 or 7 generations to reach 300 Americans, because Walmart needs to build new buildings to get more customers, right? Because one building can only facilitate a few limited amount of customers. Space issue. For example, say Central Group. Imagine if they launched Topp supermarket in Subcommittee Road, right? And this building can host maybe 1 million customer, but there are lots, there's a lot of demand for supermarket products, right? So clearly Central is building a repeatable business. People needs to eat, right? Everyone needs to eat. So they are building a repeatable business model, but not really scalable, because if the Central Group wants to facilitate an additional 1 million customer, what can they do? Because that one building can only host 1 million customer. It cannot host 2 million customers. So the Central Group needs to use some of their profits to reinvest, to build another building next to it, in order to serve an additional 1 million customers, right? 2 million customers overall. It's not really a scalable business, because it takes them 4 generations to build central department store on every every city, to get access to 70 million Thai customers. So Central Group, Walmart, these are not startups, but there's a company called Amazon, Lazada, Shopee, right? Alibaba. These guys are startups, right? Imagine if you're buying food on Amazon, Lazada, Shopee. They are building a repeatable business model, because everyone needs to eat, right? So the repeatable business. But imagine if Amazon website is hosting 1 million customer, and they want to add an additional 1 million customers to their business. Does Amazon need to go and build another website to host another 1 million user? They can use the same website, right? They don't need to reinvest to build another website for another 1 million customer. So they are building a very scalable business, versus the traditional Central Group or Walmart, that they need to keep building new building to host more customers. So that means Facebook is a startup, Amazon is a startup, Google is a super startup, by the way. Input is very little, limited. Output is massive, right? Not in a 1-to-1 ratio for sure, right? They're building a scalable product. CapEx is fixed. Profitability is huge. This is the slides from Eric Schmidt. I don't know if you guys know Eric. He's one of my idol. He came to Google as a CEO, to be the adult supervision of Larry Page and Sergey Brin, the founder of Google, because they were young. He was fully confident, by the way, when he first joined Google. He thought he knew everything about the business world, right? Eric Schmidt. But after he joined Google, when we arrive at the internet century era, he is not so confident anymore about his ability. This is the slides made by Eric. I borrowed his slide from Google, by the way. So Eric, he thought he knew everything about the business world. He learned everything as a business executive, a very promising start. But once he arrived at Google, everything he learned about the business world was wrong. When we arrive at the internet century, all the assumptions are melting away from when he was growing up as a business executive. So he sat quietly and he think. And he started with the word, what is different now? That is his first sentence, right? He thought by himself, what is different now, right? From when he was growing up. Why are all my business assumptions are melting away and no longer valid, and I cannot make accurate decisions? And then he came up with 3 conclusions. And these are his 3 conclusions. He said, the first thing that is different now in this century versus the previous century is that all the world's information and media is online. That's a huge, huge difference. In his generation, whoever has the most information wins, right? Business secrets, trade secrets. That is a barrier to entry for companies, for new companies to enter the space. Business secrets, trade secrets. But when you arrive at the internet century era, you can search anything on. If you don't know how to structure a deal, you can search and read up on it. If you don't know how to close funding, you can search and read up on it. You don't know how to open up a company, what is fully paid up, what is partial paid up, you can research by yourself. Everything is on Google. But if you ask your parents' generation, who's going to teach them how to structure a deal, how to close funding, how to open up new companies, what is fully paid up, what is partial paid up? It was very hard in the previous generation to acquire information, enough information. There were no source. I don't think you guys were there to see Yellow Pages as well. Yellow Pages, you need to search for names, phone book company. Phone book company is no longer here also, right? But those are the devices that the previous generation used to find information. But as we enter the internet century era, that assumption is no longer true. Everyone has equal access to information. No asymmetric information anymore. Right? The second assumption is coming from the guy, Steve Jobs. He changed the world completely. Mobile devices, he puts mobile phone on in everyone's pocket, meaning that anyone can reach anyone, anywhere, anytime, right? We can, for example, Facebook, they don't need to open up new offices to reach more customers. Everyone in Thailand is their customer by moving their thumb on the phone. No need to open up a single office here. So in Eric Schmidt's generation, his assumption was that the more money you have, right, the more branches you have, the more exposure to customers, right? So you need to build as many branches, shops, Blockbuster as possible to dominate the market. But this assumption is no longer true because mobile phone is the new shop 2.0. Anyone can reach customers anytime, anywhere without having to pay for intermediaries, connection to enter the country. You can build an app, and within, I don't know, 1 month, you reach 50 million users. Pokemon Go, right? Pokemon Go doesn't need, within 1 month, you probably haven't finished building up a physical store yet, right? But it's gone to 50 million people already. So this assumption is no longer true, where more branches, physical stores are the competitive advantage. Phone is the branch 2.0. The third assumption is the third observation is that cloud computing, the arrival of cloud computing puts a supercomputer in everyone's pocket, meaning that the cost of opening up new companies has gone down extreme, like crazy, at least an order of magnitude cheaper. Back then, when you need to start a company, you need to have at least 200,000 baht to pay for your private server in order to launch a website. But now you can use AWS, right? Cloud computing. You can have 1,000 baht in your pocket and launch a website quickly and test the product, test the market. So the cost of opening up a company has gone down significantly. That's the third assumption. So these three assumptions, three observations combined, results in those barriers to entries that have stood for decades, they started to melt away. Right? This logo here, Uber? It took them 6 years to disrupt one of the most ancient industry, taxi industry, right? 6 years only. So opening up a new company is much easier now with full information. Anyone can read up on anything that they need to know, get direct access to customers without having to open up branches, right? And use cloud computing, lower the cost of opening up a company. So there are more competition, easier to open up new companies. So the competition is fierce, much more fierce than the previous generation. I can confess one thing. Even today, if I see a taxi in front of me, I would not get that taxi, right? That cab, because I don't want to go and argue with him whether he wants to go to my destination or not. That's a bad service. I would rather, pick up my phone and call Grab or Uber because they don't argue with customers. What I'm trying to tell you here is that in the internet century, the best products wins, right? The best services win. You cannot have mediocre products and survive like the previous generation. In the previous generation, you can have an okay product and still survive because there are not as many companies. There are barriers to entry everywhere, hard to find information, branches everywhere as a network effect, protecting incumbents. Cost of opening up a company is too expensive. So customers need to, the power was in the company's hand. But as we enter the internet era, the power has shifted to the hands of the customers. So companies need to really deliver the best products and services in order to survive, right? To stay alive. The data is clear. You see, the cost of opening up an IT startup back in 2000 was $5 million. Do you think a lot of people have $5 million in a bank they can risk $5 million? Not many people can risk $5 million. As a result, there are only a few companies, right? And customers need to use whatever is out there. So they don't have a lot of bargaining power. But as we enter the open source era, cost has gone down by 10 times. As we enter the cloud computing era, another 10 times reduction in cost. So by the time we reach the year 2011, the cost of starting a company is only $5,000 from $5 million. Do you think a lot of people have $5,000 in a bank that they can risk? Way more than $5 million dollars in a bank that they can risk, right? As a result, there are more companies now. And if you zoom out, what is a company? A company is just a group of people coming together to solve a single problem, a specific problem, right? And if this group of people doesn't really solve issues for customers, the product and services are not the best, then there'll be a new group of people that serve customers well for you to replace you. That's it, right? So that's why competition is getting more fierce. And companies that will survive going forward are companies with the best products and services. Or even, someone might say, well, I don't have even $5,000. I don't have this money to start a company. We are in the most exciting era, in the most fortunate generation. Right now, parents' generation, when they need to start a company, they need to go to a bank and do debt financing, borrow money from the bank. We call it debt financing. Right? Your parents need to pay back the principal plus the interest. But in our generation, we don't need to do just debt financing. There are so many financial instruments out there. We can do equity financing, we can do crowdfunding, we can do ICO, we can do VC venture funding, we can do sovereign funding. There's so many funding available for us to start a company. Right? And what I'm trying to tell you in this slides here is that we cannot be too slow, because if we're too slow in some industry, it might be too late. The consequence of online companies is that there's one thing called winner takes all. Like, you don't see winner takes all in a physical business because the distance is one of the factor, the barriers to entry. Imagine if you're opening up a furniture shop, physical store. You're selling tables, chairs. People in Sukhumvit in Bangkok would go to your shop and buy your table, chairs from you, right? They will not drive all the way to Chiang Mai to buy tables, chair, and drive back to Sukhumvit condo. Distance matters. But when you're shopping online, you're just moving your mouse. So customers will just move to a website that is the most productive, right? The most cost effective. the best quality, the lowest price, the fastest, the most efficient. It's when winner takes all. There's no distance. Distance is out of the equation. There's no barriers to entry, meaning that people will just go and visit the same website that it has the best products, right? And when you start first, look at Amazon. They have this thing called economy of scale, right? Can we build Amazon of Thailand now? It's too late, right? Can we build Alibaba of Thailand? It's too late. That's the conversation we should be discussing 20 years ago, not today. Today is too late. They have economy of scale. Amazon, one company is bigger than the rest of the e-commerce companies combined in America. That's how big they are, right? Economy of scale. And or even Line. You guys use Line, the messaging app. Line has been around for only 10 years. Now they have 41 million users, customers, more than half of the country. Can we build Line of Thailand now? It's too late. That's the conversation we should be discussing 10 years ago, not today. Right? This industry is fully disrupted. E-commerce industry is fully too late, disrupted. Why is it too late to build a Line of Thailand now? Because there's a network effect, right? 41 million users are there already. Imagine if you build a competing app. You need to move your friends. If your friend is not moving, if they're staying online, your customers are not moving, your family are not moving. It's not moving. Then who are you gonna chat to? Who are you gonna message? You need to go back and use Line, right? There is a network effect. So too late. But I mean, if you take your phone up right now and you check your phone, how many apps that we're using that are fully Thai owned? Can you think of one? We are all using foreign apps now, right? But I mean, almost every industry has been disrupted. But if you think carefully, there's one app that is fully Thai based, Thai owned, that people are still using every day. It's a banking app, right? Mobile banking. That's the only app, Thai app left that Thai people are using. The rest are all foreign apps like TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, Line, Uber, Grab, foreign apps. Too late. And I would say that the bankers, the financial service industry, they have 2 years left before disruption reaches the peak. The fintech disruption reaches the peak. 2 or 3 years left from now to stay alive, to shoot themselves in the foot before someone else shoot them in the head. It could potentially be the last app that Thai people stop using that are fully Thai owned, Thai based. We'll see. We're entering the most exciting era, fintech era, in the history of the world. Disruption is coming from everywhere, in the financial space right now. Right, digital yuan, Libra, right, peer-to-peer lending, big data, AI coming into banking from everywhere, money transfer. So just to summarize, an hour is up. Just to summarize on this slide, what I've been saying in the past 60 minutes is that, 93% of the people realize what I talked about. Like 93% of the CEO, chief strategy officers, they knew that technologies will change the industry forever changing. They realized, but only 3% has the digital transformation program starting to reskill their workforce. Unfortunately, quite scary. More than half of the companies around the world, right? More than 50% of companies admit that they have no clue They have no idea, right, what to do going forward. But they realize that this is coming. They have no digital transformation program in place. They don't really know what to do, what to act next. And this is scary because these guys are the gray line, the linear thinker, right? The thinkers. They're still moving in a linear manner. They're still thinking in a linear manner. But when we enter the internet century era, that's where the world is picking upwards, right? Exponential. You see the difference, the impact of disruption is going to get faster and more impactful as we move along in the near future. So guys, that's all for today. I gave you a quick overview about the world, about the exponential developments. I hope it's a very productive Saturday for you. I admire this group. It's great. When I was a high school student, I didn't do anything, so I think it's good. It's a good group. Do you guys have any questions?
Yeah, okay, so right now, thank you so much for that. So right now we'll do a Q&A. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. Just turn on your video and unmute yourself and you can ask the question.
Can I ask something a bit unrelated to the PowerPoint?
Sure.
In terms of investment, what does Bitcoin produce, or cryptocurrency in general?
Cryptocurrency is, this is the whole new topic here. If you see my slides, these are 10 predictions, and it takes me 6.5 hours to cover 10 topics. And cryptocurrency slides on its own, it would take like an hour to explain everything. But cryptocurrencies, the best way to explain cryptocurrency is this. What is the biggest nation on earth? Most people would say China, right? 1.5 billion people. But actually, it's actually the internet nation. We have more internet users now, right? But in the US, within the US nation, we have US dollars as a currency, a centralized currency, because United States is centralized, right? If you look at China, they have yuan, right? Chinese yuan as their currency in their nation. In Thailand, we have baht as a currency for our nation. What about the internet nation? What's the currency for the internet nation? But internet is different from the United States. Internet is different from China because it's decentralized, right? If China didn't want to go on the internet, we are in Thailand, we still can get on the internet, right? It's decentralized, it's not centralized. If America didn't want to go on the internet, we can go on the internet. So if the biggest nation on earth is decentralized, and in every nation there must be a currency to circulate things around, to move things around, to move the productivity around, we must design a currency that is fully equipped with the nature of the nation, right? United States centralized, they have a US dollars. China is centralized, they have Chinese yuan. Internet is decentralized, we have cryptocurrency, right? It's a currency that is fully decentralized. If China didn't want to get on to Bitcoin, Thailand can use Bitcoin, right? If United States is against Ethereum, Thailand can use Ethereum, right? It's just the same as the internet. So another way to say this is that we are creating the internet of value. In the last 20 years, what the internet nation did was that they created the internet of information. You democratize information in the last 20 years, right? A 13-year-old can write a blog post and share it with anyone in the world. Government cannot intervene. And the net exposure is that you can read this information anywhere, anytime, regardless of where you are, right? You don't need to have $1 billion in the bank to create a newspaper company, and the net result is only the people in the country can read this information, and the government could control this information in the last 20 years, right? Newspapers, traditional telegram, post office. Only the tycoon can own the newspaper company, and the net result, he can write to only a country with 70 million people, and the government can control. There enter the internet. We created the internet of information. Now a 13-year-old who has zero money in a bank can create a blog post. You don't need to have $1 billion in your bank. And this blog post, the net result is that anyone around the world can read this, not just limited to 70 million people. And the government cannot close this down because you can create new blog posts every day, right? It democratized information. Right now, the financial space, not the information sharing space, the value sharing space, is facing the same roadmap, right? You have to be a billionaire to create a bank, to own a bank, and then the net result, you allowed 70 million people to transact, and the government has full control. There enter the internet of value, right? Now a 13-year-old can create new cryptocurrency on Ethereum, just like creating a blog post, to create a better transaction network for the world, and anyone can use it. The net result, anyone around the world can use it, not just 70 million users. You can create a bank online with 0 baht, 0 money in an account. I think I would probably need an additional 1 hour to cover just the cryptocurrency topic. There are so many, but I would encourage you to study. It's the next big trend, especially the arrival of Libra, digital yuan. Bank of Thailand has a special team right now, digital currency team, to create a central bank digital currency. There are so many aspects that you need to understand, to understand cryptocurrencies. Like you need to have a knowledge in computer science to understand what is a cryptographic hash function. You have to have, or mathematics, right? You have to be, know what a hash function is. Blockchain. You have to have knowledge in economics to study the monetary system of the world, that it is changing every 50 years from the gold standard to Bretton Woods system to post-Bretton Woods system, right? Fiat currency in 1971, right? And it changes every 50 years, the evolution of money. So it's probably one of the most exciting topic. You have to have knowledge in different dimension to fully understand cryptocurrency.
Thank you.
Okay, I actually have a question myself, but okay, connecting what you said about how we should know about like cryptocurrency and all that stuff. A lot of us are going to like university right now, and we have 4 years. And since like the world and everything is changing like super fast, what are things that we should like study and know about to help us stay on top?
By the way, if I could go back to my university days, I would not master economics, because I would take courses that improve logical thinking or creativity, because very soon when you graduate in the next 4 years, computer will replace most of the jobs. So you need to do something that is not based on memory. If you take courses that use your memorization a lot, then it's useless, because computer can do that for you, right? Repetitive memory. Try to take courses that improve your logic or creativity. Things like philosophy, computer science. Right? You have to have a very good logic to excel, or creativity altogether. And I would say this is true, by the way. Knowledge in universities are no longer up to date, valid. You need to have really high motivation to learn things beyond universities. Google has everything now, has more knowledge than universities too, and more updated knowledge. So you need to self, taught. You have to teach yourself and read up and try to attend meetups. I didn't know what a meetup was. Instead of going to university or so as a society, try to go to meetups.com and actually meet real people who does the real thing. Right? If you're interested in cryptocurrency, go to a cryptocurrency meetup. If you're interested in AI, go to the AI meetup to talk to the entrepreneurs, those guys that are the doer, right? The thinker. You go and experience, talk with them. It's very important because that's how you kind of spend your time, that it will shape who you are. Everyone has different experience and you need to connect the dots backwards in your own way to arrive in, at a different spot. Don't follow the same path, because you will just end up to become an average Joe, right? So you need to make sure your experience is unique. Don't go into a sunset industry. In my days, luckily I was different. In my days, I graduated from Oxford, right, and did economics, very traditional course in a traditional university. Most of my class, their dream was like, yes, I need to go work with Goldman Sachs, BCG, McKinsey, big paychecks, IMF, World Bank, Bank of Thailand. That was their dreams, traditional path. But the world is changing so fast, right? And those, old industry, there's so many competition, and people already have existing skills. You're not gonna, you're gonna be competing with a bunch of new, big, huge group of people who already have mastered the skill for years. Try to go into a completely new industry where not a lot of people know how to do them. You hone your skill in a different way, and you will stand out. Right? I was probably one of the few in a class of 50 people at Oxford. I think I'm the only one that went and founded a startup, a successful startup. And now everyone has been messaging me on how to start a company. So even guys from Goldman Sachs, BCG, McKinsey, right? They want to start a company. So it's very important that during these 4 years, make sure your experience are not traditional. Right? Otherwise, you're going to be an average Joe, and university's knowledge are not, adequate when you graduate. By the way, by the time you graduate, those that you will study in the next 4 years will become invalid. Because if you focus on my slides, now we're entering the last 5 steps, meaning that, within the next 4 years, that's going to be more than 20 years of development in the past. That's how fast the world is moving. Because 5 steps account for 96% of all the developments. 25 steps only account for 3%. Meaning that in the next 4 years, it's probably the most critical times that the world is moving. But you're still studying the old knowledge, the old world in a linear thinking, linear manner. By the time you graduate, you won't be using any of those knowledge, right? It will become invalid. So you need to teach yourself, self-taught online. Google has more information now, and push yourself to go on meetups, meet the real doers, the real thinkers. Is my advice.
So I also have a question for you.
Sure.
So if you're saying that since most companies now can succeed faster because of how previous companies have paved the way and given us things that makes it more convenient, then is there any area that we should be interested in, that because it would be easier to find a new how do you say succeed like them?
Sure. Unfortunately, we didn't cover the 10 topics here. It will take us 6 hours, but these are the new things that will change the future, right? Don't go into investment banking. Don't go into consulting. Those guys, there's so many workers, employees on that area already with the same set of skill. You have to be different to stand out, right? Go into this industry, right? Sunrise industry like fintech, blockchain, AI, big data, peer-to-peer lending, cryptocurrency, Internet of Things, IoT, Internet from the sky, autonomous vehicle. These are the new areas that not many people have the skill set. And I mean, if you study economics, the logic is clear. When you have a lot of competition, profit margin is thin. When you have zero competition, your profit margin is huge. It's monopoly, right? I don't know if you know monopoly versus perfect market competition. Don't go into a perfect market competition. Go into a monopoly industry where not many people know how to do. Yeah, I think this is a general advice to everyone who wants to start a company. I think the first advice would be you need to be a small, small group of people. The less, the better, right? Small as possible group of people that realize the important truth. It must be an important truth, not something not true. Important truth that where most of the world is wrong or did not see. For example, in my case, I started a company, a Bitcoin company, 7 years ago. I was in a very small group of people around the world who realized that Bitcoin will change the world, while the rest of the world thought Bitcoin was a Ponzi scheme, money laundering, dirty money, toy money. Don't go anywhere near it. Right? I founded 2 companies using zero money from my parents' money, zero, right? From nothing. Imagine if banks realized this important truth, or the stock exchange of Thailand realized this important truth. I'm a newly graduate, student. How can I compete with these guys? Luckily, they thought it's a Ponzi scheme. Don't go anywhere near it, right? Opportunity is huge for me. I was a monopoly in a small market that is growing rapidly. I would rather enter the small market and become a monopoly in a small market that is growing rapidly than jumping into a huge market share, right? Market size, and become a very small player with perfect competition. And each year the industry is growing slowly, right? I think most of the people got this wrong when they pitch to investors. They would say, oh, the market size potential is huge. When the market is huge, that means competitors are there, right? There are a lot of competitions, and competition is bad for business. You don't want competition. So you need to be a monopoly in a small market. Just like Jeff Bezos, he focused on books first. When he conquered books, he expanded to other industry. But you need to be the conqueror in one. Try to do one thing that is the best rather than do everything and there's so many competition. So I was a small group of people that was right, while the rest of the world was wrong. That's why opportunity is huge, right? We're one of the most profitable company, and I'm just 30, only 2 companies already. I mean, and I've talked over 300, stages. I mean, if I compare to my friends that graduated together, I had by far the best experience in the last 7 years. So you need to take big bets, but you need to bet on important truth, right? But how do you find important truth? Business secrets, right? You need to connect the dots backwards. I found cryptocurrency based on my unique experience. Everyone has a unique experience. You won't realize this until you think backwards. Oh, actually those events, you can connect the dots only backwards, not forwards. So I urge you during these 4 years to not get the same experience as everyone. Otherwise you will arrive at the same conclusion as everyone else. Try to be different. Go join meetups, do real things, meet new people, go to a completely new industry and become a monopoly in one of the fastest growing industry with very little players. You need to make sure that your experience is unique and different so you can connect the dot backwards in your own way that arrive at a different conclusion to everyone else, right? So that's how you find the important truth. I cannot tell you what to do specifically, but the idea is that you have to be a small, the less the better, because less competition, group of people that found the important truth while the rest of the world is wrong. That's the real needle movers. The real needle movers, you need to be like that. If you're going to go into a big industry where everyone realized, or for example, if you want to start a company and you ask everyone about your business plan, and everyone said, yes, this is a great idea, you should not do that. You should stop right away, right? That's wrong, because if everyone realized this is a great idea, then everyone is it's the same, right? Not unique. Most likely they're a great competition. So if you ask everyone and everyone agrees, don't do that. Do things that everyone is against, but you need to arrive at that conclusion after you connect the dots in your own way. You really found the important truth. In my first company, it was crazy. Like, I graduated from one of the top university. I was working in my spare room in my shop, my parents' shop. We have a clothing shop. I started the company from the second floor, one person. And my parents was very disappointed because all my friends went to work for Goldman Sachs, BCG, and they sent me all the way to a top world-class university, right? After a few months, I got a letter from the Bank of Thailand, distributed to every bank in Thailand. Bitcoin could be a Ponzi scheme. The value could go to zero anytime. That was in 2014. My parents was like, Top, shut down the company, go and work for big companies, earn big paychecks. I sent you all the way to top, university. But I was stubborn because I connected the dot backwards. I found my parents' experience are different from my experience. I found this important truth. I believe that it will change the world, right? After that, we gradually grew to maybe 7 people. Then I was really happy. We for the first time, we moved out from my house, from my shop, clothing shop, to a proper co-working space. I was looking after a 7 people company team, but then the serious case came in. Anti-money laundering officers wrote a letter with my name, Jirayut, right? Money laundering. My parents was super angry. He was like, shut down the company now. You can get any job in the world with this university degree, Oxford. Why are you putting yourself in a jail, right? But I pushed forward because those guys are wrong. I was the small group of people. And imagine if I believed my parents and I shut down the company. Cryptocurrency's adoption would not be this fast in Thailand without these 2 companies of mine, right? And I would not be here today. So you need to, the second lesson is to stick to your vision. Once you found the important truth, make sure you don't let the outer boys alter your vision, because they arrive at a different conclusion based on their experience, their same standardized experience. Your experience is unique, and you found this important truth. So don't let outer boys alter your vision. It might take time, but don't let. I knew so many entrepreneurs. There's one guy who built like SimilarWeb, 7 years of zero income. After year 7, boom, right? The biggest company, right? People would have given up in year 3 or year 4. So you need to stick to your vision, but first realize you found the important truth. I mean, the last advice as an entrepreneur, you need to have a very high pain threshold. Founding a company is not a 9-to-5 job. You would talk about it anytime, anywhere, any friends you meet. You dream about it. You will think about it, and when you sleep. It's a lifestyle, and media only show the good side. I mean, the media showed so many good sides on my story, but they have no clue how much I suffered in the last 7 years. It was one of the toughest, tougher than studied at Oxford, which was already tough, right? Reading 12 hours, 14 hours a day, every day for 2 years at Oxford. It was tough. But starting 2 companies in this space where banks are against it, everyone's against it. It was tough. Media didn't cover it, so you have to have a very high pain threshold to be a good entrepreneur. It's ups and downs. This is entrepreneur life. So you must be able to handle pain. If you can handle a lot of pain, then I'm sure you're a great entrepreneur.
Thanks a lot for the advice.
I
Yeah,
have a
got
question.
Oh.
Sorry. I'm quite interested in biology and the environment in general, and I can't help but see digital biology and biobanks. Can you elaborate more on what those are?
Sure. I mean, that's going to take me an additional 1 hour to cover this topic. But if you guys could understand Thai, I covered these 10 topics with Kun Sudichayun, 6.5 hours. You can search on my channel, on YouTube channel, or on Kun Sudichayun live channel. So just a quick summary. Biobank is like a bank, but instead of keeping customers' deposits money, we deposit cells like blood test over a period of time. Panel data, right? So when you deposit your cells blood sample over a period of time, this biobank can use the data to come up with specific drugs or cure or prevention that is unique to your body. Right? Do you notice why, some people work out all the time and they're still fat when someone else never worked out and never get fat? Right? Sometimes it's just a bad microbacteria in your body. Once you remove this microbacteria, you will just become thinner right away. Right? So these are like super micro things that we can learn more with big data about our body. Every body is different. Why are we treating everyone with the standard medical package? Or everybody is different. Why do we advise everyone to sleep at the same time, eat at the same time, work out at the same workout? Because everybody is different. It's not one size fits all. Once you are able to get the data, you can have your own lifestyle that works best for your body. For example, you should not eat milk. You should not drink milk because your body is not suitable for milk. Then it's a prevention that would cause other diseases down the road. Then there are many startups trying to use the data to customize medicine for cure and also prevention case, and also lab grown meat that Bill Gates invested. You can grow meat in a lab now, right? This is part of the biobank by using different cells, and you can we call it biometer. It's on the slides, but you can grow meat on a lab now, like we grow vegetables without killing cows. And in the last 100 years, we only had 2 billion people, right? In 1920. Now 2020, 100 year fast forward, 2 billion people, it's gone up to 7.7 billion people. So the productivity cows that are the animals that we feed on, we either need to reproduce them at a much faster rate or recreate them in a lab altogether to feed the population. Right? That's another interesting industry with very little competition. I mean, these 10 topics are very useful, and it will open up new opportunities for everyone. I urge, when you free time, please go and listen to my talk with Kun Sudichai. It will open up your mindset. You'll be different to your friends for sure. I would be super glad, by the way, if I'm a high school student and I get exposed to this knowledge before everyone else. I would know like what to do at university. I would know what to prepare, as I grow up, what to do in the future. It's probably one of the most important talks. You should go and listen to these 10 predictions. 6 hours, but worth it. Probably worth more than going to the whole four years university, doing the old knowledge, studying the old knowledge.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll go check it out.
All right, I got a question. So you talk about the advantage of our generations, the internet, but Bitcoins, and how it helps our companies nowadays to grow so exponentially. Do you have any tips for our company best? I don't know how much you know about the company. It's basically just a startup competition for high schoolers. But where should we focus on so we can grow more exponentially? Should we just create a whole platform on the internet, for the competition, or should we like focus more on the advertisement? Like, do you have any tips for our company to grow more exponentially?
Well, I didn't realize this is a company, but it's great. You guys are a high school student, and
It's not a real actual company yet. We're just, we haven't like charged for like money, but we just
We
want to.
have in some parts, but just Matt, we
But it's not a real actual company yet, right?
no, I mean we're in the process of making it, but
Yeah.
it's not like yet. Yeah, we're still like growing and learning.
sure. I mean, oh wow, this is amazing. Like you guys are still in high school and doing this already. I was doing nothing in high school. Such a waste of time. I mean, this is great. You are creating, new generation of entrepreneurs. I fully support this. I would encourage. I mean, try. You should try different things because you can fail. Like you can fail many times. You're still in high school. Like, well, I mean, your parents are still there. You still have savings and parents savings. You're still young. You can work 24/7. I mean, that's the time to try things to fail. And when every time you fail, you learn. So I would encourage you to try to build a scalable company and also a repeatable company, a startup. Don't build an SME. Think of every function that you're doing now. Can you automate any function to make it scalable? Can you make the company run by itself without relying on human, in reinvestment? Otherwise, you're not really building a scalable product. For example, Meetup.com. This is actually a company, but they don't host meetups themselves, right? They don't host events themselves. It's a platform, and everyone around the world, they can scale to everywhere around the world, and they are making a lot of money. It's a San Francisco company. So they are building a scalable and repeatable product. I cannot give concrete advice on what to do on your business model or what to move forward. But these two buzzwords is important, right? Scalable and repeatable business model. And you'll do well if you found the solution to these two words. There are so many ways to arrive at these two words. And I encourage to experiment. You can, if you can exchange years, and this is probably the most luxury, property asset, time. You guys have the time, all the time in the world to go out, experiment, try out. And I know one like super billionaire in the stock exchange of Thailand. He was saying that if we could exchange position, he's like almost 70, right? 60 plus years, and he has all the money in the world, right? And he said, if he could exchange time with a 20-year-old, and the 20-year-old will turn to his age with all the money he has, and he has nothing left, and became 20 years old again, he would exchange it. He would do it. So I think that's the most valuable property that you have, time. So I would encourage you to not waste it on I don't know, shopping on a weekend. Go and try new things. And dare to do things differently. Right? That's the most valuable asset that you have, time. Go and experiment.
Hi, I have a question.
Sure.
When you mentioned scalable and repeatable things, and I was wondering if it's possible to create disruption without creating like a digital or a technology-based kind of company, or is it only limited to those kind of things?
Not really, but it's gonna be very hard uh, because of human limitation, right? We cannot run faster than a horse until we invented cars, automobiles. We cannot turn night into days until we invented electricity. Uh, we cannot move money freely around the world until we invented cryptocurrencies. Um, so what technologies brings in is that it creates miracles beyond human capabilities. Uh, but as long as you can think of a way to create a scalable and repeatable business model, then you will arrive at the same conclusion. But easier with technology, because on the repeatable part, you don't need technology, right? You can have many business model with repeatable uh, uh, business. But on the scalable part, if you need to input more workers, more employees, then your capex or opex is going to go up in tandem with your revenue. All right. For example, a great example is Marriott. You guys know Marriott and Airbnb? Marriott is one of the biggest hotel chain in the world, right? And in the previous generation, they thought having more hotels is a good thing. It's their asset. But look at COVID-19 crisis. These two companies suffered, but who is suffering more, Marriott or Airbnb? Marriott suffered more because they have a lot of capex and opex that they need to. It's like money is leaking out every month because no one is going to their hotels, but they need to pay for the cleaners to maintain the to maintain the buildings in good shape. So money is leaking out of their pocket. Suddenly, all of the assets that they thought are assets are becoming liabilities because it's leaking the money out of their pocket every month. But look at Airbnb; it's an asset-light company. They don't even own a single asset, a single hotel room, right? It's not money leaking out. But imagine if we discover a vaccine in the next 6 months, a year from now, people will started to travel again. Guess who has more hotel rooms? Airbnb or Marriott? Right? Airbnb has more hotel rooms without having to own a single hotel. Everyone can connect to their platform, right? Their capex is limited. The rest is upside, profit margin, right? So, and Marriott has been building hotels for 4 generations. Airbnb has been around for 11 years, and they have more rooms than Marriott. Right? That's how you build a scalable technology, scalable company, and technology helps you get there. But you can try to find another way to achieve that without technology. That's fine too, so long as you arrive at the repeatable and scalable business model, right? And if I'm the investor, right? If I'm Warren Buffett, he says this all the time. He hates company with high capex, opex, because that means each year the profit must be reinvested to maintain the capex, maintain the room, cleaners, fixing things, fixing rooms, improving rooms, creating more, buying more hotels. These are eating up his profit margin. If you I would invest in Airbnb because every year I get the net profit. I don't need to reinvest chunk of that profit on getting more hotel rooms, right? And maintenance cost. He call it free cash flow. Company with the highest free cash flow. You don't need to reinvest in capex or opex. So profit margin is much greater in terms of for Airbnb or Agoda versus traditional company that are building repeatable but not really scalable business model. I think another advice here is not just to try to build scalable business and repeatable business, but you need to be able to spot new consumption trend. You need to understand that every generation, the mindset is different. The customer behavior is different. For example, Marriott, they're selling a standardized, 4 square room. It doesn't work in this generation because we treasure different things. For new generation, in my generation, when we get our first job, people would go and get a car or buy a condo or a house. That's what they treasure. But look at the new jobber, right? When they got their first job, the new generation, no one is buying a car, no one is buying a house. Everyone is spending their salary on traveling experience. That's what we treasure. Or if you go to cafe right now, you can see clearly that we treasure our Instagram photos more than what we eat. Right? That's the clear trend. People take photos of their food. That's what we treasure to show friends that the experience, right? Social status. So now every cafe, coffee shop is turning into becoming a photo studio. If you're not a photo studio, no one will visit your coffee shop. Right? So you need to be able to spot the new consumption trend. And Airbnb, they realized that people treasure experience. So they are not really a real estate company like Marriott. They're selling experience. The ability to own the old castle in England for one day or 1 week. That's what they're selling. You don't need to have $1 billion to own that castle, to go and live inside the castle for a week. Right? To own a hut next to the sea, the mountain, for a week, for a day. The unique experience. They're selling experience. So you need to be able to spot new consumption trend as an entrepreneur as well. See what's different now. I mean, this is a good question that Eric Schmidt has been saying. You need to sit and think, what is different now? Don't stick on the same assumption that you've been growing up and said, these assumptions are valid and will continue to be valid, because the world is changing in an exponential manner. So you need to question yourself all the time. What is different now? What is the important truth now? What is the real important truth now? Right.
Thank you.
Hello. Do we still have time to ask a question?
Sure. We have until 3, right? Or how?
Yeah, just go. Feel free to ask.
Okay. So like I'm really like excited about this this talk. So, but like I was worried about like how like because of this like new trend, and then like because the business is going like way faster, and then like there's a lot of new competition, like would it make the market more like unstable? Because like maybe if like a company is like it's made, but then it's not actually being able to be sold, and so like the whole market actually like become destroyed from like people investing, but actually doesn't get the revenue back, because like there's a lot of companies competition around.
Yes. So you can see, right, the rise of the collapse of WeWork and what's another company, Oyo, from SoftBank. So I think that's the mentality of running a business too. In the last 10 years, I don't know what's going on, but people keep burning money, burning cash and trying to push up the valuation beyond what is realistic. And that's not a good thing, because you will face a down round later on if you cannot meet the expectation or the performance. I would encourage you to do what we did, what we're doing at Bitkub. We are running our company on profitability, right? We never burn cash. We run everything on profit. We spend what we earn, right? We don't spend future money. And we raise every round. We don't need to raise money now, by the way. We are super profitable, but you should raise every round based on the real valuation. Don't push it beyond, because that's gonna break your company with a down round. So I would encourage to not get into those hype and have a very strong business ethic and fundamental when you run a company. I don't take take risk with limited downside and unlimited upside. That's how you do business. You don't take risk with unlimited downside. That's bad. So you need to know that, okay, here's the maximum money you can lose, and here's the upside, but unlimited upside. But I know this is the maximum downside. You need to be conservative in this way, but try to experiment on new things. But the business fundamental should be here, which should still be here. And I think it's not. I mean, if you look at the big picture, I don't think the economy is gonna collapse. Like we are going to create a structural economic problem here, because because with every new investment, you're creating new jobs. It's like instead of governments injecting money into the economy, now private companies are injecting money into the economy to create new jobs. Oh, sorry. Just like in the Spanish flu 100 years ago, World War I. Then we had this, sorry, the Great Depression, right, in 1929. Depression, the economy was quiet for 10 years until we hit World War II, 1939. 1929, the Great Depression, to 1939. When we reached World War II, government was spending on war. That's how we grow, we get out of the Great Depression. I think investment is great. It's going to boost up the economy, create jobs. Even the company wasn't there. It creates money in circulation. It creates spillover technology. It improves human skill set, human capital. One company dies, another company rise. That's normal. It's a cycle of life. So the strongest survives. That's free market economics, right? So for a competition. So if one company collapses, doesn't mean that the skill set that the workers earn are no longer there. They can migrate to a different company that spot the consumption trend correctly, found the important truth, run a company in a stable manner. Say, for example, look at Agoda right now. They're letting go of a lot of employees. It's good because everyone is coming to Bitkub, right? Fully trained. It's not a zero sum game. It's for benefit in some way. I think it's good, and also productivity has gone down every year, meaning that the cost of opening up company, the cost of production has gone down every year. We can afford a few deadweight loss. Deadweight loss in economics is just like money that we are just wasted down the drain. It's okay because we can produce things at a much lower rate. Look at computer chip, $20,000 to $79, right? That's $19,000 of deadweight loss, save up to add to GDP. 19,000 deadweight loss. I mean, if as a result of company collapsing, maybe we can afford 9,000 to go down the drain because we already save up $19,000 from economic productivity improvements, right? So I think overall productivity is improving every year, and with the improvement of productivity, the deadweight loss is getting smaller and smaller, and that allows us to take risk with the resources, extra resources that we save up, right? Those are failures, but I think that's the thing that most people got it wrong. But Jeff Bezos, I mean, I encourage you to follow him. He always has great ideas. He said, as his company is getting bigger and bigger, he measures the number of failed experiments, if it is going up or not. He needs to know that the number of failed experiments is going up as his company is getting bigger. Right? Other CEOs would be like, this is counterintuitive. Why would you want number of failed experiments to go up if your company is getting bigger? And Jeff Bezos said, it shows that his team dare to experiment to find the new S-curve. As you experiment to find new things, to find the important truth, the number of failures is going up in tandem. It's logic, right? But if the number of failed experiments is not going up, it shows that your team is not taking risk, not experimenting enough. Then you're going to be a Kodak or Blockbuster company, right? So failure is going up with the number of experiments. And when we experiment more, we found the new industry, found new S-curve, found new productivity for the world. Look at electricity. Thomas Edison, he tried so many times in order to invent new, electric bulb. But once he discovered, it improved productivity by like, I don't know, a few order of magnitude. Instead of using candles, right? We can turn night to days. We can work at night. It improves productivity by a factor, a factor of 10. Regardless of all the resources that he wasted in the process of discovering electricity. So I think once we found the new S-curve, it outweighs all the failure that the economy as a whole that collapsing. WeWork fail, Oyo fail, $1 billion lost, but within those $1 billion lost down the drain, it stimulated the economy. It's like fiscal spending. Government used to hire people to dig a hole, right? And to fill back the hole again, just to stimulate that's real deadbed loss. But now we're spending to try new things, and it improves human capital. And if it works, then it's a huge productivity improvement for the world. It's like we discover cars or electricity. I think the economy would benefit.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we're already near time, so we're gonna close this up right now. Thank you so much for speaking and answering our questions. We really appreciate it. And oh yeah, also one more thing, if you guys want to know more about more events like this, or even see our best competition, which is gonna come out soon. Here, I'm gonna share.
So maybe just one thing before I leave. If you have any more questions, you can email me at topp@toppjirayut.com, or you can follow me on Facebook. Oh, can you share the screen back?
Yeah, you can just share it again.
Oh, okay. So those talks that I talked about, that you should go and study the 10 topics. You can follow me on Facebook page, Topp Jirayut Official, TOPPJIRAYUT, and official, Topp Jirayut Official. I have all my videos, all my almost 600 stages videos, different stages that I talk online. You can find all the materials there to understand the financial development world. I talk about cryptocurrency, I talk about cloud kitchen, I talk about social banking, all these new trends. I think it's a very useful page for you guys to follow. You'll be different with new set of knowledge. And you can message me on Facebook also, inbox, if you have any questions. You can follow me there. Okay. Yes, I think that's it for me, guys. Thank you.
Thanks for the talk.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, let me quickly, you guys got the emails. I'm gonna quickly share. Okay, so here, if you guys have any, if you guys want to know more about, wait, wrong sharing, wrong screen. Trying to find it. Okay. This one. Okay. Do you guys see the QR codes? Yeah, so if you guys want to know more about our events here, Instagram and Facebook, we'll have more best events coming up, and also the best competition that will be next month. So yeah. Okay.
All right. Also, please, I send out the email for the feedback response. Please give us a few minutes of your time to fill it out so we can improve on our future session. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I think that's it. Thank you so much for this opportunity and your time. We've learned a lot, and yeah, we appreciate it so much. So
Sure, my pleasure. Have a good weekend, guys.
okay.
Thank you.
Do a lot.
Thank you. See you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What's up?
Hi. Do you guys enjoy it? Nick, do you
Yes.
enjoy it?
I love it.
Really? You didn't ask any questions. Hi, kid.
It's still live. It's still who?
Oh,
It's on
snap.
Facebook. Wait, what? Do it in my pajamas.
Yeah, turn it off, cut it off.